Welcome to another episode of The Director's Chair. This season we are discussing the works of David Lynch, and we are at, I guess, what you guys call this, the high point of season 2 of Twin Peaks? Or at least,
That's
I guess
fair.
this is where people were like, all right, they solved the mystery. I'm good. I'm out.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what people did, but that's always the rumor I've heard. But of course, joining me are my co-hosts, Kevin Pauly and Colin Smith. How are you guys?
Great, thanks.
Ready to roll.
All right. So, Kevin, this is the freshest in your mind. You just watched this like about an hour ago.
Literally, yeah. I just finished watching them, and one of the things I've got to say is, and I looked up his record to see like what else he's done, and it made sense when I saw it. But I'm just talking about the second episode first, as far as the director, and that's Tim Hunter. Tim Hunter directed the shit out of that episode.
Yes.
There are some angles, some really neat takes, some very cinematic looks. And I started looking at his background, and he's also shot episodes of like Homicide and Wayward Pines, like a bunch of Dexter, like a bunch of shows that were very much inspired by Twin Peaks. And so it was really interesting seeing that. But I had really forgotten how good that episode looks. And man, that was again just a solid outing from again the directors of this series. Some of the best, until I've really forgotten how great that episode 17 really looks.
Yeah, we were talking last week about the combo of Leslie Linklater and David Lynch doing the last two episodes, and it's certainly hard to top that. Both those episodes are so great, but following up with these episodes with Caleb Deschanel and Tim Hunter, especially this last one, episode 16, just really top notch, great stuff. Unfortunately, this is the point where a lot of people stopped tuning in. A lot of people didn't. There was a core base that sort of stuck with it, and really appreciated this a little bit. But yeah, people were dropping off. But yeah, really solid work from the directors here. Is this the first episode that Caleb Deschanel directed? Because his wife has been on the show like since the beginning.
I don't think so. I think he directed
episode 7 in season 1.
Okay, great. Yeah. But yeah, no, good work. These two episodes are both really solid. They've got a combo of the now that we've got the macabre sort of fantastic stuff going on right in front of our eyes. They play that stuff really well, but they also really explore the pathos, the loss, the emotions, like all of that. And they balance all of that stuff so well through these two episodes. So it was really a joy to watch again.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna say damn fine television.
Episode 16. I'd forgotten. Yes. I had forgotten episode 16 was titled "Drive with a Dead Girl," and man, like what a morbid title for an episode, but totally understandable because that's really what happens in the episode.
Right.
But I'd forgotten that it was actually called that. It was like, that's really on the nose, and that's hilarious. Really great direction, very cinematic direction. The like the dolly shot to the POV and back and forth so they get to her body. That's some of the best looking stuff I've seen in a long time. Like, I'd really forgotten how beautifully shot that was. And watching Harry, find his way to the body, just really riveting stuff. The whole episode, top to bottom, again, just great stuff all around. And what's really interesting to me about this episode is we now know about Bob and Leland, and it's interesting that it's basically in control, and it's so creepy watching Leland going through his day to day, knowing that every time we see a reflection in the mirror, it's Bob. It's not Leland.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Bob is taking over, and he is the driver behind the wheel. Because we Sinister should be very innocent, like Leland talks Hilt, man. It's so freaky and so uncomfortable. And I'd really just even Leland grabbing a golf club to show Agent Cooper takes on a whole different level when you know what's going on. Just really Ray Wise, how he did not get an award for his work on this series, I will never understand it, because man, that dude is chewing up the scenery like it's going out of style.
Yeah, there's the laugh that he's sort of doing behind his back. That is, I remember always sends chills through my Yeah,
it's so haunting and so disturbing, because at first you think, oh, he's crying and he's overcome with emotion, but then you hear the Sinister giggle like he got away with it sort of thing.
Well, one of the things that I like about this part is that these two episodes, now that we know,
and when Cooper goes to check on it,
and he's not acting differently than he has the entire season. We just now know, and there's a little bit of like, we should have known all along, right? Like, because it's not like he's suddenly a new character that's acting all different now, now that there's been a reveal. He's been doing this stuff, the dancing, the erratic behavior, the emotional stuff. He's been doing it the whole time. We're looking past him, right? And the series is showing us, hey, this was right under your nose the whole time.
Yeah, like a great mystery. It was all there the whole time, and you're just caught up in the plot, and you're caught up with all these kooky characters.
Yeah.
That you're not just seeing the evidence right there, which when Cooper figures it out, same thing. Even though
really
Cooper...
the scene with Ray Wise.
Did we lose Kevin?
Right.
Oh, there he is.
Just scene. Like, man, that is one of those scenes that just gets under your skin, because we've just seen in the episode prior what he's done.
Yeah.
No, I can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Moments. I mean, like, we know what Leland has done. He's in the room with her. Did it, and to watch him start that innocent dance and how it becomes so sinister, so intense. Like, man, again, that broad daylight horror is really hard to pull off, but man, they do it so effectively in this series.
Yeah. Well, and there was a part of me, I think I remember the first time, like, when Donna goes over to see him and he starts up the sort of the same kind of behavior, there was a little bit of me that was like, they're not going to kill Donna, right? He's not going to kill Donna next, but I wasn't sure he wasn't going to.
I think he was going to, though.
Yeah, no,
I
mean, very,
yeah. I didn't think that. I kept telling myself they're not going to kill Donna,
but I mean,
I wasn't sure.
Yeah. Oh, if you don't think that lemonade was spiked, man.
Right.
Lemonade, and like I said, if you don't think that lemonade was spiked, man, I'm gonna tell you right now, you're wrong. Exactly. He was ready to knock her out and do horrible things. That scene, seriously, it is just layers of disturbing. And this episode really it's a solid episode, because man, to follow up Lonely Souls, to do that is a tough order anyway. Like, I don't care what you're doing, but this episode does a really good job as a follow-up episode of, again, kind of cementing what Leland is and who Bob is. And again, also the other different plot lines continue to further along with some really great revelations this week. With this episode.
Oh, absolutely.
There's some really good stuff here. I think for me, like, one of the things I had forgotten about that made me laugh out loud as soon as I started realizing where it was going. Of course, we get Ben and Jerry, and Ben is in prison. Jerry is going to be his lawyer, and that in and of itself is hilarious. But when Jerry starts looking at the bunk beds and that whole flashback, I had
Such a
totally
great
forgotten
moment.
about that. And as soon as he looked at the bunk beds and said bunk beds, I was like, oh my God, that's this episode. And I could not stop laughing at that entire moment. The two kids that got to play young Ben and Jerry are
I love that moment. That's one of my favorite. That's one of my favorite
I
moments.
had totally just. It's just one of those little moments.
Overall,
Like,
I love it.
Yeah,
once it
even
started
though
happening,
this,
I remembered it, but I'd just forgotten about it because it's such a little, just there and it's gone kind of thing. But man, once yeah,
Well, you know what it does is it starts to. So they have to start the
it's
Ben
so like
Horn
bizarre.
rehabilitation train, right? So like so this is one of those moments where they're starting to humanize him again because they've made him so awful because he was going to be, they were using him as the distraction, the red herring, and now they need to start humanizing him because he's going to be a main character again in the series. And so this is one of those things. They show us this beautiful childhood moment where he is, having this nostalgic and this, thought for this beautiful girl that used to babysit them. I assume, like, it's not explicit, but it's pretty clear that's probably what's going on. And they, and it's just starting to be like, oh yeah, we can start to see Ben as a human again. They were doing a really good job for these couple episodes of reminding people, hey, there's a whole bunch of other plot lines going on here that we're going to follow up. Whether it's Catherine or whether it's Norma or whether it is, Bobby and Shelley, like they're reminding us that there's all these other plot lines going on that are interesting too.
I just want to add, even though Lynch didn't direct or write this episode, that whole sequence is very Lynchian. The whole with the mix of Americana and the music, the doo-wop music of the 50s. Yes, that's.
Yeah, it's a great little piece of score. It's one of my favorite Baldamenti tracks. So yeah, I always love it when that little moment comes on, and
it is a wholly Lynchian moment.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys. I was kind of thinking about sticking with the Leland train for a little bit before we get into too much of the other stuff. Even like, but I love this. Oh, go ahead. Oh, so I was just going to say that, I love this sort of arc of like, he's terrifying. And then they do that final, at the end.
No, I was just saying, looking at the Leland stuff, I'd really,
I think we got a timing issue, unfortunately. But yeah, I love how they pull the rug out from under us at the end of all that, because they give us this moment at the end of, episode 16.
Well, you get like
and it just rips your heart out, right? Yeah, but it just rips your heart out. He's, the amount, like the way Leland goes out always just gets me. It's both terrifying and horribly sad and so tragic and just unnerving as all hell. Like, it's a whole bunch of emotions sort of all thrown in together into one scene that Ray Wise, plays so well, that, Cooper is great in that scene. Like, it's just, everything about all of that is just one of those great moments for the series, I think. I'll shut up now.
Well, and I think too, no, I'm just saying, I think too, you can look at that moment in particular, and that's, that's the end of a very, tragic tale. One of the things we talked about is the soundtrack. And it is one of the best uses of Laura's theme, you're going to see in the series. It's just one of those things that the soundtrack is such a character in and of itself. And it's so perfectly used in these two episodes in particular. There's even some motifs that you don't even hear anywhere else but in these two episodes. But it is one of those things where this in episode 15 is, the horrible shot of Leland getting the golf bag out of his closet, and you see Madeline's body is in that bag, which is so demented and so creepy. And just horrific. And then you end up, closing out with the very poignant moment of when Leland realizes what's been going on and all that. Like, it's funny how you get the bookends of of horrible, and then tragic and beautiful. It's all there in these 2 episodes.
Yeah. And real kudos to Ray Wise, who unfortunately will get very little of from here on out in anything. Well, I guess except for the movie. But that's sort of the end of it for Ray Wise. But he goes out spectacularly.
No, that's true. The movie, he gets
phenomenal point where you're both terrified and you feel
I
sorry
know
for the
movie
character
was
all
very
at the
critically-
same time.
Yeah. Well, and we'll get to the movie, but that movie again, how Ray Wise and Shirley Lee didn't get nominations for their work in that, I'll never understand. Like, they're fantastic.
Agreed.
But again, as we were saying, there's the show that reminds us that there's so many other good things going on. My favorite bit is Pete coming to see Ben in the prison, and then Catherine coming to see Ben in the prison. I love both those scenes.
It's so great.
All the actors. It's just so glorious, those moments.
Yep. And what I think is funny is both Ben's reaction. So Ben's like, "Oh, he's coming here to tell me what the mill people are." Blah, blah.
Yeah,
like,
anytime you get to see him,
and then he's like relieved when he finds out it's Catherine, even though there's been this whole ruse.
Yeah. Well, because he knows she's his alibi. He needs her, and that's
when she puts her foot through the cell.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great scene. Mm-hmm.
God, when she puts her foot through the cell, though, I'm just like, that's so funny because that's how he figures out that it's her.
Yeah,
it's awesome, and we love seeing Ben Horn get his comeuppance, and those 2 scenes are chock full of that, which is wonderful.
Yeah, and again, like Catherine's not a saint either, and we have all these reasons to hate her. She's a horrible person in so many ways, but in some ways, it's just so great to see her come out on top at the end there. And they must have been having so much fun. I can just imagine those actors must have been having so much fun shooting those scenes because they're so well written, so smart, so funny, so filled with context. Like, I'm sure they were having a great time.
It's just delicious melodrama at its best. And, those 2 actors know how to play it to the rooftops.
And, speaking of melodrama, we get some really great melodrama with Norma and everything.
Yes.
Norma and her mother.
Yeah.
We get a lot of great melodrama there.
Is it the next episode where the mom shows up?
And
I think I agree with you.
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, I agree with you though. That bit with Norma, like, she's a great actor as well. Like, she, like, you can see, like, she is so long suffering and she's gone through so much, and now her mom comes and you can just see the exhaustion that her mother brings to her.
Yeah,
she delivers it so well.
She does. And Peggy Lipton was just beautiful and talented and so good. And again, we'll get to it in The Return, but one of my favorite things about The Return is her. So
me too.
She's just outstanding. And again, it's just if you're looking for that melodrama in Twin Peaks, you get lots of it with Norma in this little storyline part. And of course, we also get her mom has her new guy who may or may not have connections to Hank. So a lot going on. A lot of the soap opera stuff.
Hank, where the hell's Hank's been? Last time I saw him, he was at One Eyed Jack's.
Yeah.
So I guess he got away.
Yes, obviously he did. He gets an earful from Norma. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. But I like even their little bit at the lodge between Hank and this new husband.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very, very good stuff. Very stuff.
Soapy. It's almost like something that would have been
yes.
on Invitation to Love.
It definitely has an Invitation to Love vibe. Yes.
But the thing with her mother feels so much more like real world and so much more just the emotions there just feel so like you really feel for Norma, and how we don't know that she's MT Wentz at this point. Like it's so clear. Everything she says is critiquing food. Like the whole episode is critiquing food left, right, and center.
Yep.
And critiquing the look of the place, everything. Yeah, she's literally just critiquing literally everything. So
I mean, they haven't told us she's MT Wentz yet, but it's obvious when you see it like right away. Yeah, it's right under our nose, and
Now, one of the things I definitely wanted to talk about too was we get more of Shelley and Bobby and Leo and that whole situation. And I like the fact that we've got Bobby once again. Bobby believes he's bigger shit than he is.
When he thinks he's black in a black belt pin, and I'm like, dude's got bigger issues than this now.
Yep. That's hilarious, man. It really.
Catherine timed her revenge perfectly because she got it in before Ben got exonerated.
Yep.
But Bobby, no, not so much luck. Catherine knows what she's doing. Bobby's not in her league.
We get to talk about our favorite with Audrey because Audrey's the one that gets Bobby in to see him, which is hilarious. She just walks in, count to 10, be right back out. You're in, like Audrey just using her power, man. I love it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to what's coming up with Audrey because she has felt so sidelined over the last few episodes. And so it's nice that she's going to start being a main player again soon. But we're not quite there yet, unfortunately.
Not yet.
But
not
yes.
yet. It is definitely coming. But that little moment was really fun.
Yeah.
You get to it just reminds you of how Audrey is just like, she is her own force of nature, man. Like she goes to her own drum. Like she really does.
Yeah, no, Bobby's out of his league for sure. But that whole little plot line too.
Always.
And you still like Leo's still scary, right? Like I'm still like at this point when I was originally watching, I was like so scared for Shelley that she was gonna wake up and he was gonna be standing up and and eventually we get there, but we're not there yet. But that part's scary. Bobby's not focused on keeping her safe. He's instead focused on his plans that are, silly and but it's a great storyline and I'm enjoying watching it play out again because it's great. They're all again having fun with it and really just milking the soapy aspects of it, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's so much fun to watch. Again, it's funny. My partner, again, she's going through it for the first time, and she's just like, "I hate Bobby. Bobby's disgusting." And I laugh every time because I'm like, I know ultimately what will happen with Bobby, but yeah, I'm like, yeah, you know what? She's not wrong. She's not wrong at all. He is a disgusting jerk. Like he really is.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm sitting here thinking like the movie's not going to do him any favors either.
Nope.
No, he doesn't get his redemption really until
the return.
Somewhat better in the second half of the second season, but his real redemption comes in the return for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about that. One of the things I love too, going into the episode 16 with Arbitrary Law, was the whole mystery with Mrs. Tremont. I love the fact that we get to kind of come back to that. Like when they go there, it's not the same person.
Yeah.
No child, no nothing. Like this lady does not know who Donna is. And we're starting to get that again, that feeling of the connections to that other plane of existence where the lodge inhabitants are. We're starting to see that again, and it's so cool. But I love that, that also ties in with well, of course, with the Meals on Wheels and everything that Laura did, and of course we'll see that come back in Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. So you get some nice things there. It also ties in with Harold's suicide, so you get the note and everything too.
Yeah.
Like there's just, again, we get more pages from Laura's diary. There's just so much building up here, like it's really, really potent stuff. And again, it's a little scene of her getting that card, but man, it's a great scene. It really is.
They're tying things up in a way, like they are wrapping.
Mhm.
They're not just letting things loose ends like hang out there. They're going back and revisiting and finishing up some of these things that they used as part of the mystery, and I think that's good. I like that. I also like this element of how the Miss Tremont is clearly not the who was there before, and that Donna has experienced some connection to something that she can't explain. And I think that's interesting and fascinating and scary and all of that, and poignant too in terms of how it's connected to Harold.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, it's a great scene, and it's interesting. Again, now we know we're going to see the other Ms. Tremont and grandson again, and in a creepier way. Not that they weren't creepy the first time, but
I was gonna say it was pretty creepy than that other episode.
But
it definitely,
I agree.
in
That's a
Fire
great
Walk with
moment.
Me. Yeah. In Fire Walk with Me, it definitely gets worse. We're going back to also it's at the end of episode 15, Drive with the Dead Girl, that we find what happened to Maddie, where we officially find, the body and everything. Again, what I was thinking of, and my partner and I were talking about it after it ended, I was like, can you imagine being the sheriff's, department and finding in the span of just a few weeks another wrapped body, and the body is going to look exactly like the body of Laura Palmer because it's Maddie. Right. I can't even fathom how that would mess with you, like on so many levels. And it's so funny because this time it's at night that the body is found and not daytime, and yet the shots are still almost identical as how they pull the plastic off and you see her face. It is almost an identical thing, and it's so creepy because it's that whole thing that the giant even says, it's happening again. And this just really reinforces that. It's such that scene of finding the body is so well done. It's so well shot. It's so well just edited. That is just really a powerhouse sequence right there. And it's not a long scene, but man, it's one that sticks with you. Finding that body again and Harry being there, it's just, man, it just hits you hard.
Well, and this time it made me think about it. I hadn't thought about this before, but one of the things is, Cooper asked Harry not to release the information so the town's not panicking that there's been another murder and they can focus on the thing. But, I was wondering and then they wrap it up because they do find the killer. But it made me start thinking about what if they hadn't, what if there was another murder and they didn't solve the murder right away, and the town was now dealing with the fact that this is a serial killer, right? There was a one-off. A lot of people were kind of writing off because Laura had this dangerous lifestyle, and a lot of people knew she was in trouble. But now, if there's a second body, I started thinking about an alternate timeline where, now there's a second murder, but they don't find the killer, and the town starts to what would that do to a town of that size, right? I started just thinking about that in ways that I hadn't before, which I thought was interesting. But again, that's not where the show goes, so we don't have to think about it. But it certainly is sort of an interesting aspect and of how that would affect a town to have two deaths, and then with potential, are there going to be more, right? But they get some finality here because they do. And this is the first time jump after this episode, I think, is the first in the series of time jumps, right? They jump ahead a couple
3 days later. Yes.
3 days. Yes.
3 days later,
overestimating. Yes. But still, it's the first time the show's done that, because pretty consistently the show has been 1 day per episode, right? And which has been an interesting pattern, very rare in television series.
Take that, 24.
Right.
Twin Peaks did it first. But
so it's interesting that there's a time jump, but I think they need that so that they don't have to go through all of that sort of reveal, and they can jump to the next sort of, the next phase of the stories.
But I think the point you got at, Kevin, I think is kind of the ending scene of this episode where they're all kind of just out in the woods talking, and Truman's like, I've seen some things, but I can't explain. Even for him, which he's not as aware of the other side like Cooper and Hawk are, but he at least knows that there's an existence of something that can't be explained, but he's like, I'm stumped. Like, I don't know how this could happen in our
That
town.
discussion is one of the best. I think I love that scene with that discussion because it does open the door to, like, basically it's meta. It's letting us talk a little bit about, how you interpret things and maybe having different viewpoints on how to interpret things, right? And what's important and what's not. Like, when he says, we have to solve it because we need to stop it, right? Which is interesting. Like,
Yeah.
I think that whole discussion is interesting because I think that's what the fans are talking about at the same time, right?
It is for me. That scene for me is like the Indianapolis speech scene in Jaws. It's all the people in that you've got, it's my favorite movie of all time. You've got, Brody and Hooper and Quint sitting around the table, and they're talking about scars,
Right.
and they're talking about this. It's such a wonderful moment, but it's like there's really a lot of character building going on there and a lot of history, and it's just seeing these three amazing characters all together. The same thing for me at the end of episode 16 when you've got, what a phenomenal team that you get there. You've got the Bookhouse Boys, you've got Albert, you've got Major Briggs, and they're all there with,
What's
It's just, and Major Briggs. Now that's a man who is fully aware that there's other stuff going on. Like that guy gets it. I love having them all there together for that moment. And then Albert is simple. Maybe that's what Bob is, the evil that men
just
do.
the evil.
It's something so simple, but at the same time, like he's not wrong. What's interesting about this episode is if you believe Bob is possessing Leland, which again, I'm team, Bob is possessing Leland. He literally tells us, like, he doesn't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to tell you right now, when I let go of him, it is going to open up and he is going to remember everything. And you're not going to get around him for long because he's not going to make it. He straight up basically tells you what's about to happen. But it is, to me, I mean, that's why I've always said that I've never thought Leland was fully aware of what was going on, is because of this moment right here. Bob basically says he doesn't know. And when Leland confesses at the end, it's very much like there's that moment. And Ray Wise sells it beautifully. When Bob leaves him, you can see it.
Yeah.
Because suddenly there's just that, and it's just like, man, and it just hits. And I believe him. I don't think that's an act. I don't think that's Leland trying to cover his ass. In that moment, I really do believe that is what's happened. And that's why I've always been, team possession, not, on the more of, he
Cooper,
did it. It was just a horrible. You can play it either way. But
Cooper uses that to comfort in the next episode. Again, I'm jumping ahead, but he uses that to comfort Grace Zabriskie, right? A bit. But so I look at it a little bit differently. I don't think he's lying. I don't think for me, it's more the disassociation. So, because I'm, I sort of look at it more as Leland and his trauma and how it manifests itself. And so I see it more as a disassociation. So I see it more as the side of Leland that was doing that kept it from the side of Leland that did love his daughter and was, sort of, and so, basically he's talking through himself and the different sides of his personality, not full on like split personality. I'm not going that way, but that kind of, right. And I think it works that way as well, which is, I think, why
you can play it either way. You're not wrong with one, but I'm just saying that scene for me, I always took that as very literal, because I feel like I'm very much on the side of there are supernatural beings and entities in this universe that we don't know about. And in Twin Peaks, for some reason, there's some sort of hub there. That's where they all seem to kind of merge. And so for me, I've always thought, and again, it very much goes right back to what Cooper says to Harry when he's like, is it any less awful to think that a man would rape and murder his own daughter? Harry's just like,
that's right. That moment always resonates for me too. Like, in some ways it's like, it's easier to think there's an evil spirit that's possessing someone to make him do it than it is to think that someone would actually do that of their own volition. But I think that's why I love that discussion at the end, because it does say to you as the audience, it's okay to interpret this in many different ways, right? Like there are different ways of understanding things, and there's different ways of experiencing this, and you can experience both at the same time. You can watch it both ways and still appreciate it in either way, right? Or multiple ways. It's not a binary, for sure. There's a lot. There's also the theory that
that's the great thing.
Yeah, there's also the theory he's lying and just acting, which again, I don't fall into that camp either. But you could, I guess, say that that's just Leland playing along, right? But I don't.
You
That
could.
doesn't hold water for me.
I guess you could make a case for that, but
Yeah,
with
I'm not gonna.
with how that scene unfolds, I can't see
No.
I can't see that on my end. I can see the different interpretations of whether he's actually possessed by Bob, that's an evil demon spirit, or he's a victim of abuse and trauma and has this and this manifests itself for him to do these dark and disturbing things. But at the same time, he's not fully aware of what he's doing.
Well, I'm not sure it has to be an either or either. Like, I think
it could be both. Yeah,
you can have the evil spirit and the trauma and have those be interplaying with each other, right? Like, and
I definitely think,
right?
I think Leland has trauma and Bob exploited it, but I think Bob also was a cause of that trauma. And so
absolutely,
Bob caused and allowed that to make Leland easy to take over and made him an easy vessel to grasp onto.
But again, the other thing I've seen,
no, go ahead.
Sorry.
No,
but this just reminded me that I wanted to say something about this, is that, we get into this thing in the movie where and again, I'm jumping ahead, sorry, but it's also connected. But
yes, it is.
Lynch really transforms this fridged girl storyline into turning her into the heroine of her own storyline, where she saves herself by not giving it. And Leland says it here. He says, she did not let him. She was too strong. And I was like, this is the first time somebody has acknowledged that Laura saves herself in that moment, right? That she does not give in. She's stronger than he was. She refuses and she stands up to Bob and she wins, even though it costs her life. And Lynch takes that into, the movie and does more with it. But this is the first hint that we get of that, where we actually see Laura as her own savior.
She's her own agent at that point, and it's so important for her to have agency when she so doesn't in the series. Because she's an afterthought. She's already gone. But in the film, man, boy, she is. Again, it's a tragic story, but it's also rather empowering at the end. When you look at it in that perspective, it is a very empowering story. She was able to overcome all these horrible things, and yes, there's a sacrifice and a price, but she's able to go out on her own terms, and I think that's very much, an important thing. I also, looking at people saying that Leland is faking it, for some reason, I can't fathom that Special Agent Cooper wouldn't pick up on that. I feel like you can't bullshit Agent Cooper, and in that moment, I don't think he'd be so quick to share those kind words and the Tibetan philosophy stuff with him that he does in that moment. I don't think he does that if Leland's lying. I don't think Leland gets that from him if he's lying. I don't know. For me, Cooper is a little too observant on that level. I think he would pick up on that. And that's why, to me, that moment is so powerful, because I believe the words coming out of Leland's mouth, and I believe that Cooper is really genuinely trying to send him on in a better place. And it's genuinely, it is a heartbreaking moment. It really is, man, on so many levels. It's sad to say goodbye to Leland, because he's been such an interesting character on this journey. And it's sad that in his final moments, he had the revelation, however you want to play that, but he had the revelation of what he did and the horridness of that. But I love that the final thing he sees is Laura, and that she's waiting for him. That's such a powerful moment. And it really choked me up again tonight watching it. It was just like, man, that's, again, this is network television. What the hell is this doing on network television? This is
the other thing too, that applying what we know now about this, and your comment about Cooper, and I think you're right, is that, we also have this concept of understanding now that there's this idea about how once you're in the lodge, you're always there. So in some ways, even though Cooper hasn't entered yet, he's still already there. So there's these connections to, he's connected to that world and those spirits in a way that we don't understand at this point yet. So I think that also backs up what you're saying about him connecting to it. Yeah. So I think, again, that's applying stuff we know from later in the series, but I think, again, it's all there in these scenes.
Yes.
Well, and that's how he connects the dots, right? Is from the information he got in the lodge and in his dreams.
That's right. His dreams are him experiencing those things that he's going to experience in the future in the lodge, right? Like it's
And what a cool revelation that when he has the dream about Laura, she's having that dream about him at the same time. Like that's such a neat, crazy thing. But man, it's so potent like that. And again, it's like one of those things where again you just don't think about it when you're watching it the first time because you're just so caught up in the bizarreness of this room. But when he's like, what did the man in my dreams do? He danced. What did Leland do? Every time we saw him, he danced. And it's just like, I remember the first time I watched it, I was like, how did I not pick up on it? But it's how could I have? Because I didn't have the tools to necessarily do it. And that scene was just so much more about atmosphere and weirdness and everything else. I wasn't thinking about the fact of he's dancing and that's a clue. I was just thinking about the fact that he's dancing and it looks sick and he's awesome. Let's just keep it. That's what I was saying.
Yeah, you weren't connecting the dots to the mystery. You're just like, okay, what the hell's going on? I don't know, but it's really interesting and well done. But yeah. You have no way of grasping that unless you're an Agent Cooper yourself for the first time watching this.
Yeah, right. Right.
And it ends with that. It ends with that spooky owl thing, owl face frozen on our screen. And I remember that gave me chills the first time I watched the episode, and it still gives me chills every time I get to it. It's just an owl. The owl's not acting. He's not being, creepy, but it's not CGI owl that they might have done now with like that they manipulate his face. But it's terrifying.
Well, because we know that we've been told that the owls are not what they seem, and the way that scene is shot is very much to me that owl, like Bob, is in that owl. That's the way that scene always came across.
Certainly,
me.
Like the implication,
it's sort of an Evil Dead kind of viewpoint, and then it ends up going into the owl. And so, to me, like I always took it that's Bob's spirit finding something for the quick. And
I wasn't thinking that, but watching it, that is a very Evil Dead moment where you're seeing like the Bob force making that noise as it's going through the woods. Yeah.
No, this was I remember this part being sort of a moment where we, really could take a break, right? Like the series has been relentless up to this point, day by day by day, and so many clues and so many threads and so many. And there's still a lot of the plot lines going on, but there's a finality here. And again, maybe in terms of ratings, that kind of hurt the series at this point. But it at the same time, there's a little bit of a relief. You can, in some ways, sit back and be like, okay, so. We know Bob's still, from the audience point of view, we're thinking Bob's still out there. They even say that in their conversation with Cooper and the other guys as they're talking in the woods. He's still out there. We have to catch him. How do we catch him when he's like not in a, but there's this idea that you can sort of take a bit of a breather. There's a bit of a moment of peace for me with Leland being able to be shuffled off to the next life and be able to sort of, there is a little moment where I can sort of feel like, okay, now we can like move into the next phase. And again, like I said, for ratings, it maybe hurt the show because at this point it really started dropping off, right? So
yes, big time.
Yeah. So and ABC kept moving it around, so people didn't.
That doesn't help.
And they not being on for different weeks at different times, and so I really unfortunately got screwed at this point. But it was, I was still fully invested. So, and I wanted to see where these next plots were going. We've got Ben's storyline coming. We've got Bobby and Shelley. We've got Leo. We've got Norma and her whole world. And there's still, at this point, I guess we don't know if Josie's coming back or if she's gone forever. But we've got, there's plot lines going on that, I want to see where things go next.
Well, remember, we've had the name drop.
Oh, sorry.
The name drop of Wyndham Earl has also been there.
Story. The baby, the pregnancy, and how annoying her sister is. Oh my.
Funny thing, I didn't realize that, but there's another TV show connection here with two actors. So the actress playing the sister also played Luke's sister in Gilmore Girls, and of course Sherilyn Fenn had two different roles on Gilmore Girls. She
Okay.
played Luke's baby mama and also Jess's new, I guess, stepmom, I guess, Luke's nephew.
Oh.
Yeah. So she played,
Well, look
because
at
she
that.
was, yeah. So both those actors were in Gilmore Girls that are on Twin Peaks.
But we do get sort of a climactic moment in that story, right? Like she
Mhm.
figures out that it could be either one. She doesn't know who yet, and so she's going to ask them to, sort of work through this with her. And so that's, another sort of interesting thing. And of course, we get great payoff for that in the return. But for now,
Oh God, yeah.
we're gonna have some
I will
rough
say,
points.
like,
This is
I love Andy
go
walking in
ahead.
on Lucy holding her sister's baby, and like
Thinking it's her baby.
Andy, honest to God, thinks somehow it's that baby. Like, and the way he falls out of frame, but then you see his feet kick up. It's one of the best bits with Andy in the series, man.
Yeah.
Like Harry Goaz is so great as Andy. I love him so much. And that moment when he walks in, Lucy.
Well,
Great.
and you know what? In a soap
Beautiful.
opera, that could happen because, like,
Absolutely,
kids go
yes,
away
absolutely.
and then they come back 5 years older. So, like, who knows?
It's
in a
so
soap opera.
perfect. It is. It's so perfect.
Yeah.
Like, again, like just that. I love Andy and Lucy so much. Like
Yeah.
so much. And it's just anytime they're on screen, it's a joy. Andy like speaking French, sitting at the diner.
Yes.
Oh yeah, at the diner. Yeah. He doesn't even really know what he's saying, but he just keeps saying it.
I mean, he's like, he does know what it means, but he doesn't really kind of get understand like why anybody else would know it or the context
Right.
around it. It's just so funny. But him just sitting there with that lone piece of pie, just saying over and over, "I'm a lonely soul."
Yeah.
Yep.
But again, Andy is touched. He's got a connection too. Like I was thinking about that when I was watching him say that scene. Now again, knowing what we know now. Yep.
Yeah.
Maybe
Big
he's
time.
got some
it's got
connection
some
to
sort
it.
of connection.
Yeah.
And I think it's almost like
well,
he's so innocent that he doesn't have that part of his brain that says you're supposed to grow up and not believe in these things anymore. Like it feels like that never happened. And I think that's why. Like he's just like a giant kid. And I say that as a positive thing. Like it's great because it allows him to approach things from a very different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
also,
soap opera. Oh, sorry, no, go ahead, Cody. I was going to switch topics.
I was going to say Hawk also has a great scene with Lucy's annoying sister, where she's like, "You must hate white people. I'm so sorry for what we done." And Hawk's just like, "Some of my best friends are white people."
I know. I love that line too. That's a great moment. Yeah, good call on that one. I love that.
Oh yeah,
I was going to switch to, speaking of soap opera, we've got James and Donna, right? And they just were starting to come back together, and then Maddie's death throws all of that for a huge loop. And I get it. Like they're both blaming themselves. They're both, confused. They are kids. So, and James just gets on his bike and takes off. And
this is the part where most people have problems with season 2 is where James goes from here, basically.
Yeah.
I can understand that. Yeah.
I get it. I can totally get it. For me, it's just kind of one of those, like, I would have liked to have seen more of what James and Donna could have been. But when you separate them off, I mean, honestly, as you're going to see, there's just not a whole lot for James to do if he's not connected to everything else. And so that's kind of, it's a shame that it happens, but at the same time, like, I don't hate season 2 because of James's subplots. Like, it never was ever.
It's not actually my least favorite of the upcoming subplots. We'll get there. Dick and Andy are probably my least favorite of the season 2 subplots. But yes, I mean, not that I'm a huge fan of what happens next with James, but no, you're right. I mean, and Donna's lost for a few episodes too. Like Donna, they don't know what to do with Donna either for a few episodes. Like they start shoehorning her into other stuff, but we'll get to all that. But this is a moment too where I think like it's like just when we think they're going to get back, like that they're going to get back together, this, and then a huge tragedy. Like, first of all, they lost their best friends, and now they've lost another person who they've become really close to, and horribly. And like, no wonder James is like, just, I got to get out of here. I can't take this anymore.
That's too much. Yeah, it makes sense.
And he even has that line. Yeah, he even has that line about like, Laura Palmer's like basically in hell, and it's just like, and where does that leave us? It's such a, like, it's a genuine moment where it's like, once again, they were torn apart by Laura. It's so weird how that happens, because Maddie's not Laura, but Maddie kind of is. And again, we kind of talked about how everybody projects Laura onto her. And so it's no doubt that eventually Bob would get around to that, because it's almost like getting part two. It's funny how that happens again. But it's a shame, because again, I really wanted to see James and Donna progress. That scene where he gives her the ring is such a cute little moment, and the music is perfect, and it's so sweet, and so innocent. It's such a, and they deserve that after all the shit they've been through.
Sure,
they deserve that. And it's a shame that, of course, Maddie's death is, once again, Maddie is that third wheel that ends up being a problem, and James just can't handle it, because let's think about it. I mean, he fell for Maddie in much the same way he fell for Laura. So it's like losing her twice. And it's almost kind of like, I'm close to anybody at this point, I'm just going to lose him. So you know what, just peace out. I can't be responsible for what would happen to Donna. I mean, there's more going on than just James just says peace out. He's got, things he's going through, and it makes sense. I just hate that that's the path that his character ultimately goes in this season. That's the downside of it.
Yeah.
Well, and he also has a troubled home, because his mother, and so he just, with the few people he's had attachments to, have a devastating end. Of course, he doesn't want to see more. He probably feels like a lot of it's him.
After going to high school with his aunt soon, so
yeah. That might have been the deal breaker right there.
That catches up in the next episode. I ended up watching the next episode after this, so that we catch back up with Ed and Nadine in the next one. But no, for this one here, like these two episodes, really, again, a nice put together 2-episode piece, much like we did with the last two. And I'm glad to just kind of keep the focus on these two, because they're really, again, like, there's so much here, and the really episode 16. That final scene, the last moments, Leland's passing, and then the final scene with them discussing everything. Some of the best stuff that you're going to see, not only on television, but definitely some of the best stuff in Twin Peaks, period. Like that whole moment from Leland, to there is just outstandingly good. One of the things I had not caught, like, because again, seeing it in HD really does help, but I had noticed this time, after Bob has rammed his head into the door, when they close the door, you can see like chunks of like hair and scalp, and I was like, my God, I didn't notice that. Holy cats! Like, he was going. I mean,
he doesn't
hard.
just die from a broken heart. He's like he's injured himself fatally.
Jesus, man. Oh, it's like I really, and I'm thinking this was on network television. There is a piece of his scalp on that door, man. Like, what the hell? I mean, man. I mean, just wow. It's such a potent thing. Like it's minor shot, but man, it definitely tells the tale what is there. Jeez Louise, that gives you a lot.
Oh yeah, no, I was thinking that too when I saw that. It's like, it's a brutal scene, in both emotionally, but also just physically.
Yeah.
One of the things we didn't talk about earlier, and again, we mentioned it in the previous time, was getting to talk with Mike. Bringing him back in to ask him questions and stuff. And what's really cool? It's a subtle thing, but when he's speaking as Mike, have you ever noticed like how like tuned the voice sounds? Like, it sounds like it's coming through like a speaker almost. It doesn't sound like everybody else in the room. There's something off about it, like almost like it's a reverberation, like it's an echo type thing. It's so creepy, because his voice has that deep growl resonance anyway, and it just accentuates that. But man, that actor is so good in those scenes, man. Like when he's in the bed and Cooper's asking him about the giant and everything, and he's telling him like everything you need to know is here. You've got all the clues. It's such a great scene, man. Like he is so good in that moment in particular.
It's so cordial when
even
he
when he's down there with
hits the cop with the back of the head. Terribly sorry or whatever he says. Apologies. I don't think this was intentional, and I don't even know if the show, which it's referencing, but because of the movie version, you keep mentioning, the fugitive nod because of the one-armed man. When they are like, Mike has gone missing, and they cut to the waterfall, I'm like, oh, that did remind me, even though it was probably just a random shot they needed, just to transition. But I'm like, oh, yeah, Fugitive.
Well, that would have been the updated. The Fugitive movie was after
3 years later.
I know, right? Yes, 3 years later. But I just kind of clocked in my mind. I was like, oh yeah,
right. I hadn't put that together, but yes,
that is really funny.
I don't know if the TV show ever had a waterfall scene. Yeah, maybe. The old.
I don't know either. I don't. But I love too when Mike's then talking with Ben and Jerry, and they are just like, "Who the hell is this guy, and what is going on?" Like Jerry is just like, "Who's Bob? We don't know a Bob." And again, Jerry being his lawyer is so funny in its own right. Like
Jerry is so great in those 2 episodes.
Favorite line from Jerry: "As your lawyer, I advise you to get a better lawyer."
Yeah. I also love it when he's like, you have to either arrest my client or release him. Okay, you're under arrest. Like everything he says is so messed up.
I love when they throw the diary down on the table and he's like, do you know what this is? And Jerry just whispers in his ear, it's a book. It's a book.
Yeah, that's great.
So ridiculous, but it's great. Like
I love that Ben says it right away, and then he kind of looks over and like, "What did you just tell me to say?"
Oh, I could watch Ben and Jerry anytime, dude. They're so great when they're together. Like every moment with the two of them, from baguettes to smoked cheese pigs to Jerry being his lawyer, it's all magic, man. Those two are phenomenal together. Like. I can only imagine as actors how much fun they had every time they got to work together in their scenes.
Yeah. Well, I love how Ben is legitimately shocked about Leland. Like when it's revealed, he's like you can tell Ben is like, how? Like what? Like, and it doesn't all dawn on him. But I think it is going to. I mean, it impacts why he goes, off the rails in the next little few episodes. I think some of that it is influencing that. But I love that he is completely oblivious to who Leland was, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No clue at all. And again, we've been building up that Ben is the killer. Ben is definitely the one. And then to swap them off there as they get down to the interrogation room, it's such a great moment. And again, it's Ben's revelation of what? My lawyer? Like, it's like, what? Yeah, it's definitely a what the hell moment. And again, we've seen Ben being drugged through the ringer. Not that we feel sorry for him, but I mean, they just keep the previous episodes are just like, it's Ben. He killed Laura. He killed Laura. He killed Laura. Harry finally drops him with, you're under arrest for the murder of Laura Palmer. And it's just like, wow, like they are really going hard in on that red herring. But to have that swap off there at the end was so good, man. I love that moment when they like open the door and just shove Leland in, and he immediately becomes like a trapped animal, dude. Like it is insane. He'd been going around town as Bob practically, driving around in the car. So it's like he was kind of already, Bob was just kind of sitting there, man, looking for anything to snap. And boy, he sure gets it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. But I love I agree with you. I think Ben and Jerry's scenes in these 2 episodes are some of the best parts of it. I mean, Ben with Kat, like I said, I also like Ben with Kat. Like all the Ben stuff is really great in these 2 episodes. I guess we'll talk about Ben's storyline too. It's, I've got some issues with it, but generally it's one of the better of the subplots, I think, that comes over the next few episodes. But it's,
I would agree with that.
And again, some of that has to do with Richard Beymer and just how great he is as Ben, like just how well he plays all the layers, all the evil, all the ways he makes you like him, despite all of the evil, the way he sells the redemption in a way that actually makes you like Ben again. Like, it is remarkable what he's able to do, and he's just great in this role. It's such
well. The key thing is he never played him as a mustache twirling villain.
No.
He played him as a complex human being, because that's
Yeah.
what we all are.
Yeah.
That's the trick, is you give those layers to Ben so that we can never fully hate him. We can't
Right.
love him. Not right now, but we can never
Right.
fully hate him. It's not possible.
Right.
And that's fine. That's how it should be, honestly. How it should
And
be.
on that too, I also
and
wanted
again,
to say,
you know,
sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I wanted to say about with Ben, related to Ben. There's that scene that, again, Audrey gets such short shrift over these last few episodes, but she has a great scene where she comes to Cooper, and there's a moment where she asks him, "Did he do it?" And you know, and Cooper's answer is that's for a court to decide. But you can see in her, like, her performance in that moment. It's a small little scene, but I love what she does with that, because you can see her heart's breaking at the thought that her dad is this person who she thinks he is at that point, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And it's just so well done, even though it's just a little scene.
Oh yeah, but the fact that even Cooper's just like, you know, what do you think? You know, like, he even kind of puts that back at her, like, you know, what do you think? You know, do you think he did? Because if you don't think he did, you're not wrong. Like, they're not listening to me on this one, but I don't think he did it either. You know, it's kind of like what he's saying there. I don't think he did either. It's again, great moment.
But
doesn't he say that fairly early? And might have not been. I forget which episode of these two, but he says it, and Harry's like, "Well, we gotta have somebody. I gotta get this
evidence.
thing."
Harry is looking at it from the point of view of the evidence. He's got the evidence. He can convict it. He's got to keep the town safe.
He's like, "I got a strong case."
Yeah, I can't use dreams. I can't use hunches. I can't use Tibet. I need evidence, and all the evidence is pointing to this guy. And you know what? Harry's doing it right. I mean, from what he knows and how he's supposed to handle it, Harry's in the right. He's not wrong. But Cooper has that different layer of reality and thinking that he knows he's wrong. But I love how even Cooper just immediately says, "You know what? You're right.
It's backyard.
It's your backyard." And I love that Cooper just backs off with respect.
Yes, I love that.
Does not do anything other than just complete respect, and I love that.
Their relationship in those scenes is great. You're right. Like, because they still are respecting each other, even though they're coming to a bit of a loggerheads on this, right? They still both respect each other, but they have to do what they have to do, and they recognize that they do that, and they support each other in doing that, and that's great. Going back to Audrey, though, I like her. One of the things is that, like, so far we've seen her hate on her dad. She's been rebelling against him for so many episodes. We start to see that crack and start to see her, like I said, her heart's breaking, thinking that her dad is this monster. She gets this window now that where she realizes her dad isn't a killer, at least. Like, maybe he's done a lot of bad things, but he's not a killer. And maybe she can start to have a relationship with him of some kind. And that's where the show goes next. And I really like that part of the rest of season 2. So I like that that's starting to be seen here. And again, I just love her performance in that moment. And then, of course, Cooper sends her to her room like she's a little girl because Maddie's dead. He wants, he's worried. And I think that Audrey could be in danger.
He's not wrong, man. His instincts are correct. Instincts are correct there.
But I'm glad that we're going to start seeing more Audrey.
Well, their friendship is a really genuinely sweet thing. Like, I always appreciated the fact that Cooper, never gets creepy with it. Like, even though he's given every opportunity to, he never goes that path. He understands.
From what I understand, that was Kyle MacLachlan's request, because I think that was a plot they were trying to take them there, and he was like, "No,
go that way," and he resisted it, and they changed it on him. Yeah.
And he made the right call on that, because it becomes a very different show, and he's a very different character if he's knocking up, around knocking boots with a high school girl. That shit ain't cool, man. Not cool.
Yeah, not cool, especially being a federal agent of the government.
Just a bit weird.
Yeah.
I do love too that we get more of the connection between the little old waiter, Senor Drool Cup, and the giant. Because that moment when he sees him with the glass of milk, and he's like, it's getting warmer, and Cooper's just like, getting warmer, and it's just like it picks up like I'm on the right path. And then that old man insists on being there when they're all at the bar. And he's the one, of course, that gives us that, that gum that you like is going to come back in style. He's the one that, and what happens when he says that? Cooper hears it, and who do we see pop up?
Yeah.
The Giant. He gives him back his ring. I'm telling you, you cannot convince me that those two are not intertwined, man. They have to be. They have to be.
Yeah, I agree with. I'm fully on board with that. I just wanted to say though, like as much as we say, like we reward the show for having not gone down this storyline with Cooper dating an 18-year-old and Sherilyn Fenn. Sherilyn Fenn is actually older than Heather Graham, who he ends up dating. And now in the show, I guess we're not supposed to see her as a teenager, but technically she's like 5 years older than Heather Graham.
She's like, Heather Graham is like 21 or 20 when they're filming this. Yeah.
Yes.
So, they still went way too. I don't know how she's Norma's sister, but
yeah, she's a good 10 or 11 years younger than Kyle MacLachlan.
If Kyle MacLachlan. I was thinking Norma. Like, wouldn't she be like a good?
Oh, Norma's like
Norma.
Yeah, Norma could be her because Peggy Lipton would have been in her 40s at this point.
Yeah, so we just overlook that. I mean, Heather Graham was not presented as a teenager in her character in the show. Annie is considered a young adult, so it's different. I get it. It's all good. But it's interesting that in the end, they ended up pairing him with an actor who is even younger than.
Still pairing him with a younger actor.
Too young.
Yeah, that's fair.
I agree. It was the right call for the show, 100%.
No, it really was.
Their
friendship is definitely one of my favorite things about the show. And again, Audrey is just one of the best characters. When she's on screen, it's always fun to watch her because she is. Much like her father, she's got lots of different connections. She's got her finger in a lot of different little pies. She's kind of knowing what's going on, especially with the younger folks in Twin Peaks. And so it makes her very interesting because she's so well connected and also has been helpful, to Cooper.
She's smart. She's intuitive. Yeah, she's precocious.
And brave. My God, that girl is brave. Yes. Man, she's got a pair. That's all.
Yeah, we've talked about how she is still a kid and she acts like a kid sometimes, but she does also show a lot more grown up and a lot more strength, a lot more intelligence than a lot of the other people her age in the show. And
I'm just saying, if Cooper's Batman, she'd be an awesome Robin. Just putting that out there. That's all I'm saying.
That's right. And where she goes next, I enjoy her storylines for season 2. Like, the back half of season 2 more than a lot of the other characters. So I'm glad to see that we finally get to see her doing interesting stuff.
Yes.
Like in season 1, like when she was really interesting. Yes.
Man, God, season 1. Jeez Louise. Yeah, fantastic.
Because this first half of season 2, she got sidelined so bad, and I feel it's too bad about that. Yeah.
It is. But no, there's definitely some good stuff coming. For you guys, I guess, looking at these 2 episodes, I know we've talked about obviously the finale of it all with the final discussion. Mm-hmm. Are there any particular characters or any particular scenes that really stood out to you again in this rewatch that just kind of made you think, man, I'd forgotten about that, or that's still like one of my favorite things in it, in the series?
Side note, just something I never, I guess, recognized, or maybe they didn't show it, but in the scene where Pete goes to talk to Sheriff Truman about Josie, I didn't realize there's a picture of President Truman in Truman's office. I was like, well, that makes sense. His name's Harry Truman.
Yep, that's his namesake, man.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, we've talked about sort of a lot of it already. I mean, there's again, as much as the show is building these other storylines up and they're continuing to sort of move forward with them, I mean, this really is around the whole like end of Leland for these 2 episodes and the climax of why we started watching in the first place. The original tagline that they promoted the show with before it even aired was "Who Killed Laura Palmer?" We now know. We now have resolved that he's met his justice in whatever way, however you want to look at that, and in a way that's so satisfying, so moving, so terrifying, so unsettling, and but also satisfying. So I know that Lynch never wanted to get to this point, but what they did with it ended up being so well done, and I think managed as best you could in terms of, you know, something you didn't want to ever get to do. So
yeah, I agree
good.
with that. Yeah.
Just looking at this and looking at, like, you know, we had a good 8 episodes in season 1. I'm thinking if this was a show today and wasn't beholden to the network show of we had
this
to
would
have
be the
20,
end.
this would be the season 2 finale, and then they could pick up those other plot holes and plot beats in season 3 instead of like, okay, we got 12 more episodes to do.
Exactly. Yeah. I think, and the show might have been able to be more successful. They might have, who knows? Like, we can speculate all we want, and you never know. I mean, it was a different time. Television in America worked differently than it does now. And, you know, it's, but yeah, I very much so. This would have been season 2, and that would have been it.
Yeah.
And
that would have been it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, rewatching these 2 episodes again, what I kind of talked about earlier, I'd really forgotten just how well directed these episodes were. Like, really and truly, just some outstanding looking stuff for network television, 1990 and 91. Like, man, these 2 episodes are fire. Like, I mean, just they look amazing. They look so good. You know, there's just so much going on. But again, for a show that had different directors practically every episode, it is amazing, the continuity, but also just how the directors kind of get to put their stamp on. Like, episode 15 has a lot of the sort of the Dutch angle type side angle shots. There's a lot of those in an episode. But then, like I said, episode 16, again, you've got just some really cinematic shots, just some really great stuff. And it's just great to see, you know, to take yourself back to 1990. And you were seeing this on television, and it still looks better than so many shows out today. Like, it really does. Because, I mean, it's shot on real film, and it was shot to be cinematic, even though it's in the 4:3, and even though it was on television, it is such a cinematic looking show. And it looks better than probably a lot of movies that came out that year, if we're all honest.
Yeah. I mean, that's just really amazing me, like, rewatching it. I don't even know if I really like took notice the first time I watched this show, but it is really amazing just how great looking and just really how well done on a technical level this show was done over 30 years ago.
Well, and part of its timelessness is that they, you know, they costume it and they set dress it in a way that's a bit timeless, right? Like, they're not dressed like 90s or 80s teenagers. They're dressed almost like they're out of the 50s, but with a more 80s, 90s spin on it. So it's like the Batman animated series, the original Batman animated series, how very much like set in a time that could be both the present and the past at the same time. And I think Twin Peaks talks a little bit about that, and that helps with the timelessness of it. I mean, it's harder now because none of them have cell phones, and they don't have, so it is rooted. And I mean, they do specify this is, you know, 1989, but they also, you know, make it so that it's accessible for almost any time frame to watch it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that completely. It's what makes it, you know, such a rewatchable show. And when new people discover it, it's why even, you know, I've met, you know, people in like their late teens, early 20s have discovered this show. And they're like, man, this is so good. They're not sitting there saying, oh, look at their hairstyles or look at that costuming. That's so cheesy, blah, blah, blah. No, they're all like totally in with it because, like you said, there's a timeless quality to it. And again, we haven't talked enough about the soundtrack. Angela Badalamenti's score is just one of those things where it's like, it's one of those things like you can't imagine the show with anything but that soundtrack. Like, it's such a part of it's like watching any of the great films of our time, the 70s and 80s, that had a John Williams score. Watch it without that score, and it's just not the same thing. It takes away everything.
And Jaws or Raiders of the Lost Ark without the score, no way.
And Badalamenti's music is such like the heart of the series. I mean, it really captures it so well. Laura's theme is one of my favorite things ever composed. It's just absolutely haunting and sad and beautiful. And it's I love, if you've not seen the video of Angela Badalamenti talking about when he first played that for David, like talking about how he's like, yeah, you got to take it up. You got, I'm feeling it. Oh, Angelo, I'm crying. It's one of the funniest videos you'll ever watch. Look up Angela Badalamenti talking about Laura's theme. It's priceless. It was on I think it was one of the DVDs that came out when the series was getting. I think it may have been part of the gold package. But oh my gosh, it's so funny. Like, it's so sweet, and I love Angelo Badalamenti so much, and him talking about David Lynch, and I can just hear David Lynch's voice saying this. But it's again, it's one of those things where that theme is so like integral to so much of the show, because it reminds us that Laura is still the most important thing about Twin Peaks, even though she's gone. That theme reminds us that she's always still there, even with the passing of Leland. Laura is still there, man. And you'll understand that more as you get into the return, but Laura is still there, and she is still at the core of Twin Peaks. And it's really that music that keeps her alive and keeps her there, even when she's not there. There's just so many great pieces of music in that soundtrack. The Julie Cruz stuff is so good. And like I said, there are a couple of musical pieces in these 2 episodes that aren't like the normal pieces. They're originally made for that. And it's really cool that he was still finding new little motifs to play that still, again, fit within the vibe of the show and fit within the universe. But that's a real credit to Badalamenti for what he was able to do. And, think about it. How many TV shows were you buying the soundtrack to, in 1990? Like none. But my God, I couldn't wait to get that on cassette. And I wore that cassette tape out. And then when the movie came out, I wore that cassette tape out. And then I got them both on CD, and I was just thrilled. But yeah, that music it's its own vibe. Like, it's amazing that the soundtrack is so good. You love it in the show, but I can just be driving and be listening to that soundtrack, and I just feel like, man, it puts you in a mindset, man. There's something
you
about
start
it. So
snapping
cool.
your fingers with that one. Doom, 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 doom.
Yeah.
And of course, I mean, the main theme is a very haunting theme as well. Again, but I also like the sinister music that comes in when when bad things are happening. There's that real sinister. It's it's so creepy, and it gets under your skin. I mean, it's
as melodramatic as much as the acting is in the show. Like the music, taps into that mood of this soap opera.
It definitely accentuates it. It really does.
Oh yeah. I mean, I agree with everything you said. I think it's like one of the most incredible scores that's ever been composed, and I love that there's a few pieces from The Return that I just think are just breathtakingly beautiful. That I can't wait for us to talk about when we get there. So I'll leave that to the side. But yes, I definitely think that the other genius, if we're talking about Frost and Lynch, I mean, Badalamenti's up there with, like, in terms of just the what an achievement he had with his contribution to this whole thing, for sure. So
yeah, you can't put too fine a point on it. It really is part of the identity of the series. That soundtrack is very much a part of the identity of the series, and it's one of those that even if you never really watched the show in the early 90s, I guarantee if someone played the theme, you'd still be like, is that from that Twin Peaks show? You heard it somewhere. And again, that's just how it permeated into the pop culture, in 90 and 91. Like, it's really amazing how popular Twin Peaks was. But yeah, that soundtrack is just, it's legendary. And honestly, I like the score to Fire Walk With Me just as well, maybe even a little bit better at points. Fire Walk With Me is an amazing score, and Badalamenti goes hard in the paint on that soundtrack. Yes. He really does.
Yes. So what are we talking about next?
Yeah, so how many episodes you guys want to cover next?
Well, I was looking ahead a little bit, and I was thinking if we did 17, 18, 19, we sort of follow the arc of Major Briggs disappearing and coming back. So
yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Piece, yeah,
I think that's a solid pick because there's not a whole lot. We're not getting super heavy like we did with Leland and Maddie and all that. So I think that's a fine 3-episode arc to hit right there. I'm totally with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Like I said, I just was watching after the 2 episodes tonight. I watched episode 17, and again, fantastic stuff. Even after everything, we'll get to it next week or next podcast. But I would say 17, 18, and 19 are an excellent 3-part. Again, the Major Briggs storyline, I think that's fine, totally fine.
Well, if we go back to Sunday nights, unfortunately, 2 weeks from now will be New Year's Eve, so we probably won't be able to do that. But maybe
I'm okay. Yeah, we want to wait till the new year.
Yeah.
Well, I was also also gonna say my job is changing, so I'm not gonna be tied down in the earlier times if you guys want to do an earlier time on Sunday.
Okay.
If you guys want to
The
do a
earliest I
Sunday
can do
morning.
is about. I hate to say it, but where I have my son on the weekends, it's just hard for me to do anything because I want
Yeah.
to spend my time with him. So
Yeah.
it's easier for me
Absolutely.
to do the evening on that level.
Okay. Well,
We'll
I'm
keep
fine
it
with
at yeah,
this
we'll
time
keep
works
it
well
at
for me because it's still decently early for me. So it's you guys that are staying up late. So so I'd be good with are we looking at the 7th then, the Sunday after New Year's?
that's what it looks like, the 7th.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm
Yeah,
happy
that'd
with
be
the
fun.
same time as well, if that works best for you guys.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
that's great.
Yeah, I think that'll give us time to get through some three episodes, and I hope you guys have a
Yes,
really
that will give
happy
us plenty of time to
holiday.
get through. Absolutely.
Yes,
Yes,
I
man.
want to.
Seriously, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, man.
Yes, to both of you. Very Merry Christmas and hope a wonderful new year and good things to both of you.
Thank you. You too. You guys too.
Same to you, sir. Same to you. It's funny too because my birthday is the day after Christmas, so I get to celebrate that as well. So when I come at you in
Oh,
2024, I'll be 48, no longer 47s.
wow.
Boxing Day. We call it
Boxing
Boxing
Day,
Day. Here.
yeah.
Yes.
It is Boxing Day. Yes, it is. So Boxing Day is my birthday. Yes.
That's
I've
right.
always seen that on calendars as a kid, and I'm like, what is Boxing Day?
Right? Yeah. Which
Why is it
I
on my
think
birthday? What is it?
We
What
get
sense
2
does that
days
make?
off at Christmas. We get Christmas Day and Boxing Day, so it's always a 2-day.
Then you know what? Hey,
deal.
that's awesome. We'll take that. We'll take that as a positive. If my birthday can be equivalent to a holiday,
Yeah.
I'm in. Let's do it.
I think there's a joke in a Doctor Who special where like it's a Titanic cruise ship in space
Yeah.
and they're visiting Earth and he's like, we have to leave soon because they'll start boxing each other.
It's Boxing Day. No,
Yeah.
it'll be great to see you guys then, and I hope you have a wonderful time off. I'm actually off work
Thanks.
for this week and next week, so I don't go
good
back
for
until
you.
the second.
Oh,
Very
awesome.
thrilled.
Enjoy.
Good for you.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
excited about that. But guys, seriously, it's been 2023. It's been a really weird year for me, but one of the highlights of the year has been getting to do this podcast with you
Yes.
guys, and it's been an absolute
I'm
pleasure.
glad.
Me
It
too,
has
yeah.
been every time I get to do stuff with you guys, it's always a good time. And I love the fact that again, when you find people who love that same thing that you do, that never seems to get enough love, it's a kinship forms, man. Whenever we all get to finally meet somewhere, first round's on me.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We have a lot left ahead of us, so it's not
Yeah, we
gonna be
do.
here anytime soon.
As we talked about, this is just Twin Peaks. We haven't even gotten to David
Yeah.
Lynch's filmography yet.
Nope.
Yeah.
But I mean, normally it'd be crazy to do a whole TV show, but I feel like it's essential for David
You have
Lynch.
to.
I feel like
It's part of
and
the
be
language
kid-
of Lynch, man. You have to
Yeah.
have it. It's
Oh,
you
yeah.
have to have it under your tool belt. It's got to be there, man.
and besides, you can't talk Fire Walk with Me without the context of the TV show.
No.
And so many people tried to do that when it came out, and that's why that film got crapped on so much. Is people had not seen the series and just thought, "Oh, I can go see this movie." No, you can't. It does not work that way. It'd be like going to see The Return of the King and having never watched The Fellowship of the Ring or The Two Towers, and just being like, "Hey, I'm just going to go see this new movie people are talking about." What the hell is all of this?
Yeah, you can't do that.
Not with Twin Peaks, no.
I mean, I'm not one to I do get kind of annoyed when sometimes I'm not into a movie and someone's like, well, you got to read the books and you got to watch the TV show.
Yeah,
I'm like,
that's good.
every movie shouldn't need homework, but
No.
with something like this, it's kind of a given. It's like you should be in or you're not in. Like
this one is the whole experience. You need the whole experience to really get
it is.
Yeah.
It's an absolute experience. It's a really great way to put it. And if you've not read the books that Mark Frost did when The Return came out, they are also awesome.
They are, yeah.
Lots going on there too. And if you ever thought that Lynch is responsible for all the weird stuff, read those books because Mark Frost goes a little weird there too, man. Let me tell you, there's some creepy, dark stuff.
Yep.
Well, with that, guys, seriously, happy
Okay.
holidays, and we'll
Yes.
see you in 2024, man.
See you next year.
Yes, you guys stay safe and have a great time, and I'll see you in the new year as we talk more dark and twisted dreams with Twin Peaks.
Indeed. Take care, guys.
You too. Bye.